I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse get free and stay free. Yes, the lying was bad, the infidelity was bad, the financial abuse was bad, it was all bad. But I do believe there is one tool in the narcissist bag of tricks that affects us more than anything else. I believe that to be gaslighting, and I want to talk about that today. What is gaslighting exactly? Now, gaslighting is the narcissist's most common resource. This is a tool, a trick that they all use to control and manipulate and mind sweep their victims to the point that the victim is unable to accurately gauge their own reality, their own perceptions of reality, and it starts to really alter the truth as the victim understands it, leaving them in a position where they can no longer believe or trust their own thoughts or feelings. Gaslighting is a well-calculated psyop, a form of psychological abuse, psychological control. And this, of all the forms of abuse that the narcissist uses against their targets and victims, is going to be the most impactful and is going to have the longest lasting effects. Now, the end game for the narcissist is to gain control over you, manipulate you, cause you to doubt what they themselves are doing. They are at all times trying to keep their behavior secret. So they are creating an environment where you have now become so confused, so disorientated, so unable to trust your own thoughts, to understand the reality of your situation, to the point that they are using this now as a form of camouflage to hide their own behaviors. The idea is to make you believe that you are crazy. Now, you may have discovered, may have noticed that during these times of heavy gaslighting, certainly in my case, the gaslighting was followed with a whole lot of, you're crazy, you're sick, you're crazy, you're bipolar, you need medication, there's something wrong with you. No wonder your life is so fucked up. You're insane. Now, the weapons that the narc is going to use, the tactics that they're going to use to execute this psychological warfare against you is first and foremost lying, denial, misdirection of information, constantly looping back with comments like, that's not what happened, I never said that, especially around conversations. Now, Trevor and I, from time to time, he would attempt to get a bit honest and maybe make a minor confession. So if days later I would say, well, wait a minute, you said, he would say, I never said that. We never had that conversation. You're crazy. Now, one area where victims' targets are really impacted by this is memory loss. When you're constantly being told that your memory, your account of reality is wrong, it not only causes people to question and doubt their memories, but this tactic can cause long-term memory loss for victims. Now, how do you know for sure if you are the victim of gaslighting? One thing that's really paramount is an inability to communicate what's happening to you, a real inability to articulate, explain to a friend or to a family member what's actually going on. I know at the best of times this is hard to explain, but gaslighting really produces in the victim an absolute inability to explain the abuse or to express how they're feeling as a result of the abuse. Victims of gaslighting find it really challenging to put into words what's happening to them. Another clear sign that you're being gaslit or the victim of a gaslighting psyop is the feeling that you can't do anything right, that all of your best efforts are failing. And especially for people who have had, success in life, all of a sudden you find everything's coming up short. You just don't seem to be able to get things to fall together the way they used to. Not only are things not coming together for you, but you could genuinely have a deep-rooted feeling that you just can't do anything right. Now, this is both the product aspect of the gaslighting and your partners, your narc partners, constant, relentless infliction of his disappointment or her disappointment in you. When you're constantly disappointing someone, you're constantly feeling like you can't do things right, very likely you're a victim of gaslighting. Now, like anyone else, of course, I had experienced challenges in life, but nothing like what was happening to me during the horrendous relationship with Trevor. All of a sudden, nothing was coming together for me. I constantly felt like there wasn't anything I could do right. And this was really confusing for me because at night, I'd lay there thinking, this is pretty weird. I've just never faced challenges like this before. This feeling of inadequacy can show up in all aspects of your life. You can be feeling like a failure at your career, feeling like a failure as a parent, as a partner, as an employee, as an artist. I mean, these feelings of failure can impact every aspect of your life. Another sign that you're being gaslit is a lack of happiness, a lack of joy, a feeling of hopelessness. For most people who have suffered from gaslighting, people will often say that they've never experienced such sorrow, such unhappiness. People who were typically happy by nature prior to the narcissistic relationship are now finding themselves in an endless state of hopelessness and unhappiness. A lack of self-recognition is another really key sign that you're being gaslit. An inability to recognize your life, to see yourself as a shell of the person you used to be, and often find yourself wondering, as I did, oh my God, what the hell happened to me? That extraction of your identity, that sucking of your happiness, will often leave a victim feeling like a shell of their previous self prior to the narc abuse relationship. I'd always been a person that was able to make good choices for myself and my family. Now, during the gaslighting, of course, I found myself making very, very poor choices, second-guessing decisions, and really struggling to weigh out pros and cons. Such a big aspect of the impact on victims is the emotional destabilization. So if you find yourself apologizing a lot, apologizing for things you haven't even done, this is all part of that manipulation that destabilizes us emotionally, causes us to doubt the role we're playing in events, and will typically lead to a lot of excessive apologizing for things we've never done. Victims of gaslighting will often become quite secretive, will even lie to protect themselves, keep things from the narc, keep things from friends, co-workers, family members. This stems from, of course, the confusion, feeling like you're a shell of who you are, and a considerable amount of embarrassment around the fact that you've lost control of your life. Quite often, people will just say things like, I'm fine, or will tell white lies, because they really don't want to be in a position where they have to try and explain what's going on. Now, another symptom of narcissistic abuse is overcompensating for the narc, covering for the narc, lying for the narc, trying to smooth things over so people, just the general public, friends, co-workers, family members, see the narc as a better person than they actually are, because you start to develop this sort of embarrassment about being associated with them. Otherwise, really honest people will start to lie to protect themselves, to try to avoid the wrath, the rampage, the chaos that ensues when trying to communicate with a narcissist. Certainly, it's hard to understand gaslighting when you're in it, when you're standing there in those shoes and this is being inflicted on you. One of the first red flags, one of the first signs that will usually tip a victim or target off, to the fact that something insidious is going on here, is a real feeling of shock, of dismay, of utter confusion as to what's being said to you. So in addition to the disbelief, the shock of the way the communication is developing between you and your narc, there is also going to be denial. And this denial will certainly add to the cognitive dissonance and the confusion. Now, as victim starts to slip through that state of shock, the next phase for a victim is going to be the development of a real sense of defense, like you need to protect yourself, that feeling that now you're in combat, now there's some sort of battle raging where you really have to defend yourself. Victims really feel that they're under attack by gaslighting. Another really insidious aspect to gaslighting is the narc's inability to answer a direct question or to change the subject, interrupting your thought patterns. Now, you may have started out wanting to talk to your narc about a situation that you thought through conversation could be smoothed out, but nonetheless, he's blaming everything on you, blaming everything on you. Now you're in a very, very defensive situation, which will very typically lead to depression. This absolutely insidious form of abuse is so vast, I could go on and on for 5 hours, but just to sum it up for the sake of timing here at the video, is this insidious form of abuse is going to impact your life negatively in all aspects, spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally. It's going to lead to cognitive dissonance. It's going to lead to depression. Now, quite often when people are depressed, now some lifestyle sort of issues start coming up, possibly now having to take antipsychotic medication, antidepressants, maybe you're drinking too much, maybe you're not sleeping well, and all of these things now, in addition to the brain trauma you're experiencing, because you're truly suffering a brain injury from this abuse, but it's also impacting your vital immune system, which is just decreasing and decreasing. Once your immune system is down, that's when the portal for disease starts opening up, and victims can find themselves absolutely spiraling out of control in a downward spiral so quickly that they absolutely cannot even stop it. In our heart of hearts, we all know the truth. And once you get free, of course, in retrospect, it looks very different. But I certainly know from my own personal experience, when you're standing knee deep in it, it is one desperate, desperate situation. Guys, I'm really rooting for you if you're still there. If you're free, please stay free. If you've not yet gone no contact, do it. Just shut them down. Nothing good is going to come of being in contact with a narc. Guys, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. I hope you guys are having a narc-free day, and I hope you really recognize the severity of this horrendous form of psychological abuse.